Master Z is a part of the growing Ip Man franchise. It's not a main canon Donnie Yen entry, which means it doesn't get a number. But to give it some credit right up front, it has been the first non-Donnie Yen Ip Man that I've been even remotely interested in. I mean, unless you count the Grandmaster, I guess, since that's about Ip Man also, but it's not really the same thing, not the same franchise. There are many Ip Man movies. There's The Legend is Born, Ip Man. There's Ip Man The Final Fight. There's Ip Man and Four Kings. There's the Ip Man TV show. That's a real thing, too. We've actually already reviewed the first 3 Donnie Yen Ip Man movies on this channel before, so be sure to check out that video. Links in the description or on the iCard. I love the Donnie Yen Ip Man movies, but none of those spin-offs have caught my eye until Master Z. Now, what's different about this one? Well, first off, Ip Man isn't in it. Cinematic universe style, we instead follow a supporting character from Ip Man 3 on his own adventure. Master Z stars Max Zhang, who served as a great foil and adversary to Ip Man in the 3rd film. He was an interesting enough side character that following him as a protagonist this time around sounds like a great idea to me. Max Zhang has a really cool vibe. He's obviously a great fight performer, and his hair and his wardrobe, it all complements him really well. Overall, his cool factor is pretty high up. In terms of the dramatic performance, though, he's a little monotone, honestly. It suits the character decently, and it worked well in Ip Man 3, where he's a side character. But when he's our protagonist and there's all that weight on his shoulders, it leaves him feeling a little bit flat outside of the fight scenes. He's far from bad, just not all that dynamic. And I was left wanting a little bit more emotion in the story's bigger moments. There will be some spoilers ahead, but this isn't really the type of film that will surprise you at all. It doesn't really try to either. So I don't think spoilers are really a big deal here. So just, you can still watch it. Don't worry about it. Master Z is directed by the legendary Yuen Woo-ping, who is already connected to the Ip Man series since he was the action director for Ip Man 3, and he returned again after doing Master Z to do action for Ip Man 4, which he didn't direct, but he did action direct, which is different, if you didn't know. Now, there was a noticeable change in the action when Yuen Woo-ping took over the action directing duties from Sammo Hung, who was the action director for the first 2 Ip Man films. It wasn't a step up or a step down, just different. The style maybe traded a little bit of realism for a little bit more exaggeration. And if you greatly prefer one over the other, then it will affect your preference. With Master Z, the action style is further distanced from the initial Ip Man films, and even the 3rd film. The action feels decidedly different than the numbered Ip Man films, and I could see people reacting either positively or negatively to this. I didn't mind it as it gave the film a sense of its own identity, which I don't think is at all a problem when you're talking about a spin-off. When I say the action feels different, it mostly comes down to the physics at play. The Ip Man films have always had a little bit of wuxia infusion, but this wuxia edge started out light in the first film, and it has continued to grow with each entry in the series. Master Z has the wire work at the highest it has ever been by far, and it certainly gives the film a different, less grounded feeling than the Donnie Yen films. I do prefer the somewhat less exaggerated style of the Donnie Yen films, but I can't deny some of the craziest physics-damning moments in Master Z put the biggest smiles on my face. I mean, this... It's friggin' ridiculous, but hot damn is it cool. Or this... What? Did he go 0 gravity for a second? Oh, whatever. It is too badass to care. There are a handful of moments where the exaggerated physics took me out of the film as well. Like some of the wire work is definitely more floaty than I would have liked. The neon sign fight is reminiscent of the awesome building side fight at the end of Chocolate, which is a good thing to be reminded of. That one felt far more real, no floaty feeling. But to be fair, tons of stuntmen got extremely hurt filming Chocolate, so it's understandable to take some precautions and be safer to integrate into this style of action. You can't blame them for not wanting to murder their stuntmen like they did over in Thailand for Chocolate. The action is good, but unfortunately the same cannot at all be said of the connecting bits. The drama is not very well written, and it's super schmaltzy. It's extra disappointing because the drama bits in the Donnie Yen Ip Man films are excellent. They're way better than the drama bits in the majority of Kung Fu movies. But this time around, in Master Z, anytime when fists aren't flying it definitely comes off as secondary, and it feels like it had a lot less attention paid to it. There are some notable supporting actors in Master Z: Dave Bautista, Michelle Yeoh, and Tony Jaa. The non-Asian actors who aren't Dave Bautista are fucking awful, which is typical for martial arts films. The child acting is also terrible, again on par for the course. They did a good job mixing up Bautista's fighting style by utilizing his massive size and making his punches feel incredibly powerful. It avoids feeling too similar to the Mike Tyson fight from Ip Man 3, and even from the Twister fight in Ip Man 2, and both of those were definitely possibilities. I think Bautista getting involved in the fighting is meant to be a surprise, but I mean, it's impossible to not see coming just by virtue of who he is. Even if you've never heard of him before, he's still a white guy built like a brick shithouse. Of course he's gonna be the big baddie. What else could happen? If you turn the volume all the way up, you can actually hear his suit screaming in pain from holding those giant muscles back. Tony Jaa doesn't have a whole lot to do. I don't actually think he says a single word in the film, as a matter of fact. I think he's just a silent henchman guy, which seems like a waste of his talents. He only has one real fight scene, and while it is good, it isn't very long, and the way it ends is in an unfinished business kind of way that sets up a rematch later on in the film, or at least that you expect to come up at the end of the film, but it doesn't happen. They end up going a different way with his character that definitely comes off as a bit of a letdown and doesn't really have the satisfying redemption angle, which is what I think that they were going for. At the end, he's still just a thug following orders. He didn't really have any redemption. His orders might have changed, but he didn't. Therefore, there's no arc. It doesn't matter how dramatically you have him pose up above at the end of the film. They even show him getting his new orders right before Max Zhang goes to fight Bautista. So the whole fight, it seems like you're waiting for Tony Jaa to bust in and for them to team up. And that could have been a cool redemption if he fights with Max Zhang against Bautista, but that didn't happen. And it definitely felt anticlimactic, because when the fight with Bautista was over, I was left thinking, there's no way the fight's really over. Tony Jaa hasn't busted in through a window yet. And that didn't happen. Didn't happen. There are some moments that bend the realm of believability a little too much, like when a drug boss wastes an entire package of heroin, valuable heroin, on just something that's a minor annoyance to him. Or when a clue is held in a corpse's hand, even though it's been inspected by the police in the morgue, and honestly probably should have had an autopsy done on it by that point. How is it still in his hand? I don't know. Both spur events that are necessary to the plot, but the means to arrive with them could have certainly been carried out in a smoother way. Michelle Yeoh is the best actor in the film. She gives a good performance, and her big fight scene is also excellent. The quick dexterity sparring hand fight over the drink is also awesome. This is to a fight scene what fingerboarding is to skateboarding. The fights feel different enough from one another to stay fresh throughout. There's a mixture of both low stakes and high stakes fight. The tone appropriately shifts to be lighter and more fun for a friendly fight with Master Z sparring with his new boss, where the loser has to accept money, versus a more serious tone for a fight where Molotovs are flying and his child is in danger. Interestingly, this change in tonal presentation for the later fights is not reflected strongly in Max Zhang's performance. He takes every encounter, no matter how inconsequential, super seriously. He's always on the same level when he's fighting, which you could argue is a bit of a slightly wooden performance thing, but you could maybe argue that it's actually revealing his character's mental approach to the act of fighting, as it's something to always be taken with the utmost seriousness. So you could explain it away that way. There's a good level of destruction to the fights. Environments are well utilized, and they get totally wrecked by the time those fights are over. The amount of broken glass approaches comical levels by the end of the film. I mean, not like police story levels, but, you know. The environmental destruction really shines once Michelle Yeoh gets hold of a sword. There's a scene where police are beating people with batons, and they used rubber batons, you know, the bendy kind, so that they could make full contact with the hits, which is all fine, except when you put it in slow motion, you can clearly see the batons bend and spring back and forth. They wobble. That's some immersion breaking stuff right there. There's finally some real pushback and justice against the crooked imperialist law force from the hands of the local police, which is honestly quite cathartic after seeing them get away with it across the 3 previous Ip Man films. Overall, Master Z doesn't really stack up too well beside the Donnie Yen Ip Man films, But it's still a fun time with solid action and plenty of cool moments. It breezes right by, too, so if you've already seen the numbered Ip Man films, want a little bit more of that universe, Master Z will do the trick. Thanks for watching my review. If you liked it, then leave a like on this video, comment whatever you want, make sure you subscribe for more stuff, but don't you dare touch my bell. That bell is not for you. Just don't do it. Don't you dare click on that thing. That bell does not want you clicking on it, okay? So just leave it alone. And this is just my voice, by the way. If you don't like it, go away. I don't care.